Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Once again, today is Monday, November 25th, 2024. We are gathered for our typically weekly Community Planning Infrastructure and Resources work session. We have a full agenda of various topics of interest. By way of introduction, my name is John Kafalis, Commissioner, joined by Jody Shattuck McNally, also Commissioner, and our third Commissioner will not be joining us today due to other county responsibilities. We also have our County Manager, Lorinda Volker, and I believe it's appropriate at this time to turn it over to Lesli. Hi, Lesli. Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. So I will quickly hand it off here to Amy White, and we have Judy Calhoun with us for the first item. We do have a full agenda, but the first two items we expect will go fairly quickly. So the first one is the NOCO Humane resolution to address and increase fees, and the second one is a request for legal action, and Amy White is here for both of those, so I'll pass it over.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Amy White, Code Compliance Supervisor, and as Lesli said, we've got Judy Calhoun here, who is the Executive Director, CEO of NOCO Humane, and we're here to present. You might remember we were here in July and gave you a little bit of a rundown on anticipated costs for the contract, and then also their request to increase the impound, boarding, and license fees. And with that, I'll turn it over to Judy, and she can give you the specifics.
Thank you, Amy, and thank you, Commissioners. As we discussed in July, it has been, I believe it's been 7 years since we increased the licensing fees, and we are proposing to go from 15 to 17 for an altered license, and from 50 to 60 for an unaltered license. You do have, as part of your ordinances, a waiver for people who I believe it's seniors who are income qualified. I do not have an updated number on the licenses sold on that, but I believe that plan is working well between our office and your office. So that would obviously continue. It has also been, I believe it's been 8 years since we've increased the boarding fees. And I struggled to find when we last changed the impound fees. So the boarding fees are going from 20 per day to 25 per day. And the impound fees for animals with a license, current license, are going from 40 to 45. And for animals without a license, who are required to have one, from 60 to 65. So. And I will let you know that our staff do, when there are pet owners who are coming to reclaim their animals who have financial struggles, we do negotiate and waive some of those fees. We typically start by waiving some of the boarding fees. Just so you know, our first goal is to get animals back to their homes, but we do need our community members whose animals have ended up in the shelter to help be providing some of the cost of that care.
Thank you, Judy. Thank you, Amy. Is there anything else before
Nope, just to entertain questions if you all have any.
Commissioner, do you have any questions or comments?
First, thank you for bringing this forward. And a couple of questions I had was, during the pandemic, we saw everyone adopting a dog, and then we saw kind of an increase of people who couldn't, had to surrender because of circumstances. And as we get into holiday season, also kind of knowing we've seen some other folks who are experiencing some food insecurity and other housing stresses, are we seeing an increase of animals being surrendered or animals kind of abandoned? And I'm just curious about that.
Not due to the holidays. We typically don't see that holiday stress. that I think some of our human service agency partners do. As a reminder, we work very closely with Colorado Pet Pantry and Animal Friends Alliance with their, here in Larimer County, with their pet food pantry programs. We are an emergency provider with Colorado Pet Pantry. We're not necessarily seeing huge numbers of owner surrenders, like I said, due to the holidays. We have been seeing increase in numbers. Some of our numbers are a little challenging to compare year to year because of the addition of the Weld campus and some of the impact of that. But like many, many other shelters and rescues around the country, we have been seeing an increase. Fortunately for us, it's seems to be like slowing down just a little.
If I might, Mr. Chair?
Yes, of course.
And so I know you also help us, and you and I had a conversation earlier at the community gathering, so I just want to make sure, kind of disclose that we had kind of started this conversation about animals that are running loose or animals that are hit on the highway. We've had a lot more elk running around. You know, they're around my house right now. I drove by a lot of bighorn sheep right on the highway up to Estes over the weekend. I was up to Estes twice, and I know I see a lot of the raccoon issues. Are you going to talk about any of these? I see those bunch of those kind of changes and more animals out and about and interacting, unfortunately, in a not a detrimental way with cars and other things.
I had not planned on talking about that. Just as a reminder, we don't handle wildlife over 100 pounds. So your elk, your bears, those larger animals are going to be the Colorado Parks and Wildlife. We have been seeing a very significant increase in our wildlife, particularly raccoons with distemper or appearing to have distemper. That is a fluctuating issue, and we're just in a high distemper year. Hopefully with the winter that will calm down and we'll see that drop off next year. We see those fluctuations. Occasionally this is one of the highest in a long time, in over a decade, so.
Well, I'm sorry to put you on the spot there. I just saw a lot of them, and then since my dogs have gotten skunked twice this fall, I'm very aware of and my house is very aware. The activity of wildlife seem to be a little more increased, so I'm just curious.
And some of that, and I'm not a wildlife expert, so this would be a CPW, but I would not be surprised if some of that is due to either foraging issues or temperature fluctuations, could be impact of various fires over time, impacting their natural habitat, those kinds of things.
Well, and it's interesting you brought that up because I am scheduled for a call with a couple of those folks because I was worrying about Alexander Mountain Fire putting some extra pressures on some of our wildlife in the foothills. So I appreciate all the work that you do. I know you guys are still in kind of a big transition, having taking over the two county areas, and just appreciate all the work we have. I know you have a lot of people who really care about, there's my Amber Alert, care about this issue and taking care of our animal residents of Larimer
Yeah.
County. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. Thank you, Judy. I have a couple of comments, quick, and one question. First of all, one of my comments is to remind us all of the excellent partnership that NOCO Humane has with, I'm sure, CPW, Colorado Parks and Wildlife, but also the Northern Colorado Wildlife Center, as well as the Rocky Mountain Raptor Program. So I think there's a good collaboration there.
Thank you.
My question is, and then my final comment, my question is, what is the, in terms of justifying these fee increases, what is the financial methodology that you all use? And I suppose related to that, these couple of dollar increases, what percentage of your increased costs do these increased fees cover?
Oh, that's a great question. So financial methodology is we we look at what kind of numbers make sense, how long has it been. We absolutely know that we can't be raising these fees kind of in conjunction with inflation, especially the inflation we've seen over the last few years. But we also want to make sure that, as I mentioned, pet owners are having a share in the cost of the animal services contracts that you all have with us. So in looking, the licensing was probably one of the hardest because 15 to 20 is a big jump, and we didn't want to suggest that. 1750 is kind of a 17's a funky amount. 1750 gets into odd, but we just felt like that made sense. We also compare where we are with other jurisdictions along the Front Range. We are still in a relatively low category for that. Same with the daily boarding fees. I don't know if either of you have tried to board a pet recently, but this is a pretty screaming deal. So, and again, we're not the absolute bottom of our peers along the Front Range, but we are also not in the top. And same thing on the impound fees.
So is it correct to presume that these proposed increases only cover a percentage of your?
Small percentage of the contract, yes.
Okay.
I want to say, I don't have the valuation formula in front of me, and Amy, I don't know if you remember, but I want to say your total revenue credit back, and this would include some of the revenue from the sales tax, that's the building fund, I believe is less than 30% of your contract payment.
And then
I was just going to say, I don't have that
gross
data in front of me, yeah, so.
and I guess in closing on my part, colleagues, and of course, thank you, just a reminder that we will be formally considering this tomorrow in a public setting. I think it's on the consent agenda.
That is correct. It will be on the consent agenda for tomorrow morning.
Related to that, unless it's difficult in such a short-term turnaround, it would be helpful to know some of the data regarding the waiver program, how well that's working.
Okay.
Maybe you could send that to us, and we wouldn't necessarily pull it off the consent, but maybe we could highlight that.
Sure.
Or remind folks that's available,
Yep, we can certainly get that for you.
and the parameters perhaps.
Okay.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you. Is there anything else? Okey-doke.
I just have a couple more things. Just for your planning, we'll be coming back to you in December with the 2025 contract to be signed. So this is just the resolution increasing these fees. But then yearly, we contract with NOCO Humane for their services for the entire year. So it had to be after you ratified the budget and then sometime in December. So we'll be back December 16th with the consent agenda for December 17th. And then you might remember we had a conversation about the prohibition of animal sales on the roadside. We'll be coming back to you with that update to the ordinance in early January.
Great. Thank you for those reminders. Amy, thank you for your presentation. I believe we can move on to our next topic. Happy and healthy Thanksgiving, Judy Calhoun, CEO of NOCO Humane.
Thank you, you too.
Code
All right,
compliance matter.
Code compliance matter is next on the agenda. So we just wanted to give you a little bit of background. We're requesting legal action in the district court. We've got the first property is planning and building approval is required for the accessory dwellings located in the detached storage buildings, plural, multiple recreation vehicles being occupied for more than 30 days, outdoor storage of junk vehicles, junk, trash bags and debris, building permits required for windows, doors, and enclosed porch and/or improvements made to detached structures and the main dwelling. And then this particular property has a couple of expired permits as well. And then adjacent to that property is the next property that we'd like to address, and that has very similar violations. Structures and additions built without required building permits and structures converted to habitable space or dwellings without the required building permits. Outdoor storage of junk vehicles, and then there's no manageable system for human waste that we're concerned about.
Thank you, Amy. Commissioner, any questions or feedback? Quickly remind us again, you're bringing this matter to our attention. What's the next step in
So
taking?
this too will be on your consent agenda for tomorrow.
Oh, it is on for tomorrow?
Yep, should
Okay.
be. We'll I'm getting the nod from over here. Yeah, so the procedure is we just notify you at the work session of kind of the general violations, and then we get your approval through the consent agenda, and then we'll send it on over to the county attorneys.
Great. Thank you, Amy. Anything else?
That's all for me today.
Okay, then, wishing you also a happy Thanksgiving and all of
Thank you very much, you guys as
You
well.
have one of your code compliance folks here, keeping an eye on things. That's great. Wishing you a happy Thanksgiving as well, sir. Thank you. Ms. Everett.
All right. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Rebecca Everett, Community Development Director, and I am here today to talk with you about our draft work plan for the Community Development Department for 2025 and into 2026. So a few notes before I share on screen and I can walk through what's in our work plan and how that's organized. I first wanted to just take a moment to provide some context related to staffing in community development. So we are currently fully staffed in community development, which is very exciting. And we have 50 employees in the department. And that includes 2 temporary employees that are not full, kind of fully budgeted for and full-time equivalent employees. And then we have 3 part-time employees. So altogether, it adds up to about 47 full-time equivalents in our department. The majority of the employees in our department and the vast majority of our work time goes to our daily operations, which include processing development applications, which you all see, processing and issuing building permits, ensuring compliance with our regulations through our code compliance division, including building, land use code, engineering codes, and other adopted ordinances. Front counter customer service. We serve a lot of customers every day at the counter, on our phones, and through email. A lot of just inquiries about things that relate to community development that don't result in an actual paying customer on the other end. And we process things like open records requests. We do special event permits. We have a lot of daily functions that occupy the majority of our time. So what I'll present here in our work plan is everything that kind of comes on top, that we plan to do on top of those daily operations. And I just wanted to share that first for context about kind of the limitations on our capacity that we have to take on a lot of special projects in any one given year, given the people that we have. 2025, just at a summary level, is going to represent kind of the conclusion of several projects, as well as continuation of projects that are already in motion. And then we're adding a few new projects to the mix, which are projects we've talked about with you all in the past. So we intend to keep working on projects that we already have in progress and that have been previously identified. And would like to share with you some of our priorities for next year and what we see as the highest priority projects to get your feedback and guidance. So let me share on screen. And why is it? Okay, I wonder if I need to drag it. There we go. Okay. So this work plan is divided into 4 sections. First is the accomplishments from this year that we are still in, so we're not quite done with 2024, but some of the highlights of 2024. Then ongoing projects that will continue from 2024 into 2025 or beyond. Then new projects that have been identified as priorities. And then the last section highlights those ongoing operations that I started with. So first, a quick reflection on 2024. We were able to accomplish a lot in this past year, and thanks to the support from you three as our Board of County Commissioners on many of these items. So we continue to focus in 2024 on housing and increasing access to housing, reducing barriers within our codes, and that included the adoption of some new regulations and removal of some regulations as well to streamline our processes related to housing. You all approved Phase 2 of the legislative rezoning, which applied the Natural Resources Zone District to state and federal properties. We have, as you heard recently at a work session, we've made significant progress on implementing recommendations from the code compliance assessment that was completed last year. We are almost to the finish line on the water master plan. That plan was adopted by Planning Commission last week and will be scheduled for approval by the Board of County Commissioners on December 9th. We had hit a major milestone related to oil and gas enforcement and shutting down Prospect Energy's operations within Larimer County and ensuring that we are addressing public health violations as they come up through all of the operators that we see in Larimer County. We are in the process of, this year we implemented new fees and revised procedures to enhance our special events program and improve consistency and customer service in that program. And I'll talk a little bit more about special events as we get through the rest of this work plan. We have also been working on a manufactured housing preservation zone district, which Planning Commission heard last week and recommended adoption of, and the Board of County Commissioners will consider on December 9th. So we hope to have that wrapped up before the end of the year. We were heavily involved this year in legislative matters that relate to community development in building, code compliance, planning, housing, and other topics. And then finally, we have really been leaning into our role as regional conveners and regional collaborators, and we've continued our regular coordination meetings that we have with municipalities, but have also convened and participated in various regional conversations and engaging with our community members throughout Larimer County, whether they live in an incorporated municipality or out in the rural unincorporated area. So those are our highlights from 2024. I'm struggling a little bit to manage the screen over here because it's
Well
not
done.
on page. Hold on.
Yeah.
Yes, Commissioner.
One thing that I don't see on here that I think was a major accomplishment that I don't know if you want to put on there is the 1041 hearing that we had. That was a huge lift, and your team worked really hard together, and I just want to make note of that because that did take a lot of collaboration across departments and within your team and was in multiple days. And I think that was our really first big application that really looked at the implementation of this new 1041 regulations that we had placed in and that staff had worked hard on. And I think you should put that on here too, because it was quite a large and involved in lots of ways. So I don't know, and not to tell you what to do, but I think you should add that to your list of accomplishments because that did take all hands on deck thing. So
Yeah,
just
thank you
curious.
for pointing that out, Commissioner. It's amazing how quickly you forget about things sometimes once they're behind you. Thank you. All right, so ongoing projects that will continue from 2024. We are close to wrapping up first piece of the lighting code project. So updating our land use code regulations related to outdoor lighting to address some gaps in best practices and modernizing our lighting or our lighting code. That will be the first piece of that project that will wrap up. And then into next year, we plan to take some additional action to align building code and land use code requirements while we are updating the building code, building codes. And then we will focus on outreach and community engagement as well as staff training related to outdoor lighting. So that project will continue with additional code focus and education and outreach. We have several code updates that we are, sorry.
I'm sorry. Forgive me, I was trying to think about, when I read this over the weekend, I was trying to pull it out of my head. There's been a lot of things happening, but there was some other thing that you had, and I think Leslie had put on your list. There was another opportunity from a presentation of this DNR about us being able to maybe influence night skies with a presentation in this room about some changes and some light sky stuff. And I thought, oh, maybe this is another opportunity for us to grab people to update or to educate and maybe encourage them to change their lighting. I don't remember what that was from. It was a presentation just in the last 2 weeks here. I think DNR or somewhere, but I thought maybe that was another area to kind of proactively educate people at that point. I think you took a note on it, Leslie, and I don't remember.
I'm not instantly remembering either, but I can go back.
Yeah, and it was in the last, it was since the 1st of November, and it was about, I was like, oh, well, I wonder if we could add that, another opportunity to educate people, maybe incentivize them to change their lighting then, and I forgot what it was on, but I just thought it was another opportunity, so I didn't know if we could maybe figure that out. And I've been racking my brain for the last 24 hours, but I could not remember what it is, but I'm sure it will wake me up at 4 a.m. Tonight, and I'll remember it then, but I'll try to send you an email then, so hopefully you remember before I do, but I'm sure it'll come to me eventually, so.
Great, yeah, any opportunities to kind of leverage other projects or outreach or connections to kind of increase our reach and our influence is welcome, so thank you for that. We have code updates that we're looking at. There was a lot of new legislation in 2023 and 2024 that relate to code requirements, building code and land use code requirements. So we are continuing to monitor for new rule makings at the state level and other requirements that have come out of legislation. So, for example, you will see, as we've mentioned, a new code update that relates to natural medicine. You will also see other topics come before you that are related to state legislation. So that's work that we started this year and will extend into next year.
So I wanted to just put on your radar, I've attended a couple of the WUI Code Board, the Wildfire Urban Interface Code Board meetings, and we're having a presentation from my colleague and friend, Commissioner Stoltzman. She's the only elected on that body. And they're going to bring in some updates, but there are some things I have a concern about that I think should be on your radar, the state's going to have appeal processes to that code come down to the local governments to handle the appeal processes and things. And so I just thought maybe an update for you all, just to make sure you know, because I do think there's some timelines coming up where this is going to start to be coming forward. But to me, it seemed like a heavy lift, maybe on some local governments to help with some of those pieces. I'll try to bring back some information. I did attend that meeting, but I know they weren't quite in that process of things on paper that I could bring back to you. And they're also still just trying to figure out the maps of what is the WUI zone and not. But I do know that I was a little alarmed about us having we would have to handle all the appeals process, and I assume that would be through your office or maybe through, I don't know. I just
Yeah,
know it would seem like it was some more things for us to have to wrangle, and I just wanted to put that on your radar if you haven't been following that board session.
Yeah, that's one of those topics that we are monitoring, and Eric Fried, our building official, since that relates to building and fire codes, has been keeping an eye on that, and I'm sure he's making note of this as well, so, yeah, thank you. There is a lot to keep track of in terms of recent legislation and how it affects us, and things are evolving quickly, so it helps to have those things flagged. We will, moving on to oil and gas regulation enforcement, we will continue to put energy toward that, both in partnership with our health department and in partnership with our municipalities, Loveland, Fort Collins, Timnath, that are all looking at oil and gas regulations as well. Oh, there we go. Oh, okay, sorry. Boards and commissions policies. This is something that is taking a fair amount of time for us to update bylaws for the 6 boards and commissions that we support and help to implement the new policy related to boards and commissions. So ensuring that we have consistent attendance tracking and that we're enforcing some of the provisions of that new policy. So that's something that we will be ongoing into 2025. And then as we have discussed at a work session in the last couple months, we are working on some code amendments related to the Estes Valley area and the codes that affect that area to address specifically accessory living areas or accessory dwelling units in the Estes Valley, as well as to address some other gaps and omissions that we've identified that are very minor in nature. So these are continuing projects in the policy and code area. The next project I'm going to identify is really our most significant project that we're working on right now. So as we talk about move into process improvement and customer service, we are in the process of rebuilding and re-implementing our InterGov system, which is the system that we use to process almost everything that we touch in community development, from planning projects to building permits to code compliance cases to short-term rental licenses, and including engineering processes, engineering permits, floodplain review, and even extending into the weed district. There are many different departments and functions that we use this InterGov system for, and we have identified the need to rebuild that system to better support the level of collaboration and customer service that we want it to have, and to set us up for electronic plan reviews and customer self-service and more modern functions. So this is a project that started this year in 2024, and we will be working on through 2025 and likely won't reach full implementation until 2026. And we have members of every work group in our department involved, and team members in engineering that are helping to define what this new system looks like. They'll help build it and test it. And so that is something that is kind of behind the scenes, but takes a significant amount of staff time to accomplish, with a lot of support from our information technology department. The next bullet underneath that is electronic plan review, which really just ties into the InterGov project. And that, again, is a goal. One of the goals of re-implementing the system is the ability to take in and process every type of permit and plan electronically and move away from hard copy, except when that may be the customer's need or preference. So we have customers every week asking for this, clamoring for the ability to submit things electronically and do plan reviews electronically. And by the end of the InterGov project, we should be able to deliver that. We are also involved, as you know, in the public input tool, which is a new online web platform that will allow us to better engage with our community on both special projects and development cases. So that will continue into 2025. And we have 2 other software programs that we are hopefully close to wrapping up implementation on, but should be wrapped up within the first quarter of next year. And one is our new special event software, permitting software. that will allow us to better coordinate across departments and, again, create more self-service tools for our customers. The Granicus software implementation is intended to monitor short-term rental compliance and assist our co-compliance department in scrubbing the internet for unauthorized listings, flagging enforcement issues and potential violations, managing a 24/7 hotline, and other functions that support our ability to enforce that particular ordinance. The last two items here that are ongoing in customer service and process improvement relate to our general process improvements and procedures that we're working on. One is ongoing, looking for continued efficiencies in our development review process. And you will see some of those changes coming. Some of those will be apparent to you all as decision makers. Others may be more behind the scenes and relate to the customer experience. And then succession planning is a big focus. We have a cohort of employees in our department who intend to retire within the next 5 years. And there's a lot of knowledge and experience in that cohort that's important that we are transferring to our newer employees and making sure that our department can maintain consistency in decision making, transfer that knowledge on, and make sure that we are not impacting our customers and our community as we lose some of that experience and knowledge from our team. And then I won't dwell too long on ongoing countywide and external initiatives, but we are heavily involved in the Climate Smart Future Ready Plan, the strategic plan, the Geospatial Strategy Project, which is led from information technology that looks at how we're using geographic data to answer questions for the public or present information or conduct analyses. We are continue to be involved with the City of Fort Collins in the East Mulberry Plan and eventual annexation of that enclave into Fort Collins. And then we routinely participate in outreach and other supportive activities from our manufactured housing or mobile home communities, going to resource fairs, providing education, and finding ways to better support those residents of our community. So those are our ongoing projects, and I can pause there before we talk about new projects to see if there are any questions.
Rebecca, thank you for pausing. Just a very quick comment. I appreciate what you just shared regarding an emphasis on improving our customer service, because I think you're aware, periodically there will be some folks that have expressed concerns about either the building permit process or the development process. So I'm glad we're really focusing on trying to streamline and improve that customer service experience. Thank you. Yes, Commissioner.
So I wanted to ask a quick question because I happen to be up in Estes just trying to enjoy some of the holiday cheer, but just hearing people's conversations behind me in the coffee line that were complaining about having to go at midnight knocking on doors to ask the short-term rental 2 doors down to stop and be quiet and all those things. So I almost wanted to turn around and say, hey, there's this complaint line and stuff. But so my question is, because it just seemed they all were sharing their horror stories of the last 2 months or 3 months of stuff. So I didn't say anything because I didn't know where our process was on if this new hotline and enforcement was, where was the status and where are we at for people now and what are changes or how does this process look to change for those folks? Do you have any of that information?
Yeah, I'll see if Amy wants to come up and speak in more detail to this, but we have the ability for people to call and report a complaint 24/7 already. We're changing from one software vendor to another vendor that we think can serve us better, but we already have the reporting mechanisms in place and the ability for people to file a complaint either through our website or through the hotline. Amy, is there anything that you would like to add on kind of reporting and enforcement?
There's nothing really that I can add. We continue to not get many nuisance complaints. It's mostly folks that are operating without the prior approval. That's still the majority of the complaints.
So this were all nuisance complaints, so I just decided not to turn around and say, hey, by the way, did you know you can file this? But I think I'm going to make myself a little, like, business card or something to hand it to them with the website or something for them just to have it, so.
And I think the plan is once Granicus is fully up and running, that we would make a little bit of announcement of some sort to, again, just remind people, because it has been a while since we've reached out to the community and said, hey, this is available to you.
I appreciate that. I don't think these people were aware of the resources, so just for me not trying to be too much of an eavesdropper, but
Yeah,
it's
and
hard not to be.
Excuse me. So there's a little bit about new neighbors moving in, and, there's still a lot of change up there that if you weren't around for all these discussions, even a couple years ago, you may not be aware of the challenges or the opportunities to report.
Okay, thank you, Amy. Thank you.
Okay, now to the exciting part. So new projects, and you may notice that I called this a 2025 to 2026 work plan, but I included 2025 to 2027 for the new projects because I think some of these projects, given the amount of work that we are taking on and our capacity, will likely extend into 2027 at this point. So we have a full list of projects here, and we're ambitious about what we hope to be able to accomplish in the next couple of years. But we also want to be realistic about, how much we can take on, and some of these projects will have some unpredictability to them, and that we might be dependent on another community and jurisdiction, or we might be dependent on certain partners to be able to get a project fully complete. So the projects that are shown on the work plan with an asterisk are the ones that we as the community development team have identified as top priorities.
To add in,
Yeah.
I think, too, it's fair to say that they're a reflection of previous conversations with the commissioners and direction that you've given, so they should sound familiar. So.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, no, we didn't do it in a vacuum. These are what we anticipate to be the priorities based on our conversations with you all, and what we have resources to accomplish. So the first three projects under long-range planning here, and let me scroll up a bit, are all funded through the Strong Communities grant that we received from the Department of Local Affairs, DOLA. The first is focusing on our intergovernmental coordination related to growth management, and that's either implementing new intergovernmental agreements or updating and strengthening the intergovernmental agreements that we have in place that relate to how our municipalities within the county grow over time. And so we have identified and already begun conversations with the town of Wellington about establishing a new intergovernmental agreement with that community. And we recently had conversations with Timnath about a final implementation of their intergovernmental agreement by adopting a growth management overlay zone. I'll try not to get too down into the weeds on some of these, but we've been having conversations with Timnath about just finalizing their intergovernmental agreement through one final step. Some conversations, we anticipate that there may be conversations with the town of Estes in the coming year related to an annexation policy. That is something that the Board of Trustees in Estes Park has identified as something that they would like their staff to look into. And so we expect that there will be some amount of coordination with the town related to that.
I guess I spent some time in Estes twice, 2.5 days up there. I heard from the trustees and the mayor that they actually were having a work session on annexation and talking about that, what that looked like. And so are we coordinating with them for that work session with that information, or are we listening in to hear some of the questions, or how are we, how is that looking? Because I know it certainly was interesting to hear them say they wanted to have from what the new folks online said, a more predictable or process instead of they called it willy-nilly annexation. So I don't know if that was a good thing to say. So now that I know that's been an issue, but I'm also, know our comprehensive plan talked about pushing development into, kind of more into the town and not having it still sprawl out. So just curious about that.
Yes, so the Town Board of Trustees did have a study session already to introduce the idea of an annexation policy and see if that's something that they wanted staff to work on. That was, I believe, about 2 weeks ago that they held that study session. I did go back and watch it to understand what was discussed, and there was clear direction from their trustees to their staff to follow up on a whole list of questions and explore the idea of an annexation policy. They haven't fully defined what they mean by annexation policy or what they see that becoming, if it's just a set of criteria that they're using to decide if a property should be annexed, or if it's something that is a little broader and identifies annexation areas and growth areas, or something that's more of an involved community conversation. So that remains to be seen. We have been talking to staff at the staff level to understand what the town staff are hearing from their elected officials, so that we can identify where it might make sense to coordinate or help support those conversations with the knowledge that we have about growth management and annexation.
That's
Leslie, is there anything you would like to add?
Yeah, I would just say, and Lorinda can chime in too, but typically with these kinds of intergovernmental agreements or policies, we wait for the towns to approach us with a proposal and a request, and then that initiates the whole process of joint work sessions and conversations and that kind of thing. So while they're still in the period of deciding what and if they want to do something, we're just waiting to hear more from them, and then we would come back to you for further direction on how to coordinate and what next steps to take. So we're kind of in that stage of waiting at this point.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. As you can figure out, it's even holiday things or whatever, we, as elected officials, we can't help ourselves to not talk policy or talk stuff, shop all the time. So we try not to, and just celebrate, but it just came up over the weekend. So I appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah. So Wellington and Estes will likely be our focuses for the next year as it relates to growth management type conversations, with some continued conversations with Timnath, as I mentioned, and then we've been approached by City of Fort Collins staff about a desire to update the intergovernmental agreement with Fort Collins to just capture a lot of the amendments that have happened over time and clean that up. And we see that there could be interest from some of our other communities with older intergovernmental agreements as well. So there are dates that range from 2025 all the way to 2027 as we're talking about intergovernmental coordination, because a lot of it is, like Leslie said, kind of waiting to see when the municipalities are ready for conversations, what type of conversation they want to have. But it is something that we have identified as important to work on as part of that Strong Communities grant that we received. The next Strong Communities project that we have funded is a new transfer of density units program. This is a program that is intended to shape where and how growth occurs in the unincorporated areas of the community. And so ideally, this would result in identification of areas that are less suitable for development and areas that are more suitable for development based on things like flood hazard, fire risk, agricultural viability, where there are infrastructure and services that can better support new development, considerations like that, to help better shape how we zone properties and how we match development up with the right locations. So that is a program that we have some experience with. The county and City of Fort Collins worked together on a transfer of density units program over 25 years ago in the Fossil Creek Reservoir area. That was a very successful program and was used as a model around the country. And so that's something that we would like to build off of that success and use it as an opportunity to help implement our comprehensive plan, our Climate Smart Future Ready plan, perhaps our hazard mitigation plan, and other planning efforts that all relate to one another. That one's a little bit of a technical kind of topic and project. So I'll pause to see if there are any questions about that. Okay, all right. All right, the third project that was funded by the Strong Communities Grant is a housing needs assessment. This is something that will be led by Aaliyah Rodriguez in our housing stability program, but we would be a partner with and are supporting her in that project. Similarly, the hazard mitigation plan we know will be updated in 2025, and we're a committed partner for that project. It's not identified with an asterisk here because it's not something where community development is leading that or funding it, but we do recognize the importance of that project to the county and the community. And then the last project under long-range planning is a comprehensive plan update. So our comprehensive plan was last updated in 2019. Since then, we have adopted several other plans or plan to adopt plans, including the Water Master Plan, Larimer on the Move, Climate Smart Future Ready, Hazard Mitigation. So there will be a need to update our plan to incorporate and align with some of these new policy documents. And there is also recent legislation that relates to the types of topics that need to be included in a comprehensive plan, and there are some deadlines in 2026 for getting some of that information into our comprehensive plan. So that's a project that we are planning on for 2026 and possibly into 2027, and would require some funding. So that is project that we're anticipating kind of on a little farther time horizon. Moving out of long-range planning and into policy and code, our top policy and code project priority for 2025 is the building code update. This was a project that we had originally planned to take on in 2024, but because we're waiting on some new code guidance from the state, we've pushed that out to 2025, and that project will be a regional partnership with a regional code committee and representatives from other municipalities that are also working on updating their codes at the same time. So we hope to be able to get as many municipalities in Larimer County as we can onto similar codes as Larimer County, which will help our customers and provide more consistency and clarity for the region.
I'd like to offer a question, please. Will this 2024 building code update include any potential need for updating building codes as they pertain to agricultural interests?
So Eric Fried, our building official, has come up, and I'll let him speak to what's kind of on the list.
I mean, it certainly can. We can look at everything in the code. I'm not sure if there's a specific proposal coming out of the Ag Board or something that they want to look at or something you want us to look at.
Perhaps it would be helpful to have a conversation with Matt Lafferty, our principal planner, long range, in that I think as part of the Ag Advisory Board work plan, they were looking at having Matt present on the land use code and, implications for ag. I mean, there have been discussions going on forever, and it seems to me, I know there's been an effort, Eric, to create a fact sheet, for example, that tries to explain what applies to what. But there may be a need to look at that as well, or maybe have a conversation with Matt.
Okay, so noted. Yeah, so you're thinking more about presenting the 24 codes as they relate to ag to the Ag Board.
I think so, and whether or not there's any, I'm just thinking out loud, but based on some of the conversations we've had over the years and more recently, and, maybe circling back with Carrie Weiner, who's the Extension Director, who's the staff liaison for the Ag Advisory Board. But I know there have been issues, I believe there have been issues around what applies, what doesn't apply, square footage, outbuildings, all of that is, if there is a need for some change, to consider that in terms of making it easy for producers.
Mm-hmm. We can do that as part of the code update. It's been kind of a little bit put on hold until January when we should get started, but as part of that, yeah, we can talk to the Ag Board and the
Final-
Environmental Science Advisory
Yeah.
Board and others.
Thank you. Final comment. I believe we have I think at the January Ag Advisory Board meeting, I think Matt was going to give a overview of land use code and, how it intersects with some of the ag stuff. But Rebecca, of course, please fact check all of that.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I believe what's planned for Ag Advisory Board is just a presentation on changes that we've made in recent years and that are already in place, and not necessarily anything new that we're looking to implement unless there is some specific identified issue or feedback that the ag community has that they'd like us to explore.
Thank you. Oh, Commissioner, please. Sorry.
Thank you for following the WUI code changes. That has been a very interesting, robust conversation. I'm sure you've been watching. So some of this delay, I wouldn't say delay, some of this getting the building code updates, is this all, because I know it impacts municipalities too with some of the fencing and things like that, right? So is this also something we won't have to go back, maybe by then they'll have something coming forward with this WUI code board, or is this something we're going to have to go back and add in later? Because I think once people realize what's happening a little bit more, it's going to be a little more engagement and than there is right now with the public, and maybe elected officials don't know some of the processes. So I don't know what your thoughts on. Is this something we're going to have to just maybe go back and fill in later? So.
Well, that's one of the reasons I kind of put off the 24 code adoption so they wouldn't have to go back. There's also the issue of the energy code was delayed in publication, the cities developing their own energy code, that was delayed. But because the state's supposed to come out with the wildfire code by, I think, May in order to have it effective July, we could simply wait until their code comes out and then incorporate it into our code. Up until now, we've had amendments in our code. So the idea was not to have to go back after we do the code, to do the wildfire code as well as the state energy code that's supposed to be due out the month after, all in one pass. So it would just,
Okay.
so we'll probably go through the rest of the codes and do the public engagement and the discussion, and then put it aside and wait for the wildfire code and the energy codes to come out.
I appreciate that. And I knew that was the implementation time, but I'm wondering if it's going to get pushed back. I know it's by statute. It was supposed to get done, but I'm curious about that. So, okay, well, I'm glad that you're, as always, on top of it, but I just kind of wanted to have that conversation because we've been having more and more behind-the-scenes talks between commissioners that we're just trying to get everyone to kind of pay attention as commissioners. That's why we're putting it on the panel that I'm on in discussion about, hey, everyone needs to understand what's coming, and because I think everyone's been focused on the property tax task force, and then this has been working. But as I understand, there's only one elected official on this board, and so I think implementation is. There's a lot of insurance, and there's the fire marshals and other folks and foresters and stuff. But I don't know if there's enough of implementation from the local governments thinking, trying to troubleshoot what's going to be able to be done. So I'm just curious about that. So I'm glad you're on top of it. Thanks for always being very much informed. I have a few concerns about this, but I guess I'll have more information after next week when we see how people react to it. So.
Okay, since we're coming up on our time here, I wonder if you all might like to continue this conversation at a future work session, or if you would like to kind of review and provide any feedback or questions, or how you would like to wrap up this conversation today.
The only other thing, and I'm sorry to ask so many questions, on page 5, and the ongoing operations, I appreciate you reminding us of all the things you guys do. But on that, I think you were getting close to being on that last page. When you talk about the water master plan implementation, priority action items, is that going to take, are we doing things that don't cost money, or what are we looking for grants and things? So when you say implementation priority areas, are you letting us know about funding and things that might be needed? And I know you're going after some grants, and then that and maybe we can just put this on a parking lot. And then the special events, I guess I feel the urgency of that being done before the spring, because I know we're starting to plan for summer and fall events, and I figure I'm thinking, is that going to be all kind of done before the season of
So-
events. I'm just curious.
Before you respond, your question was whether what do we want to do to continue this conversation? So would you like answers to those questions now, or do you want to schedule perhaps a subsequent work session to follow up on things we didn't get to, or to provide that feedback,
I'm open. I know we've got a lot of I'm open for some of those answers to be answered offline and separately, or if you want to, send us an email, but I'm open to whatever. I just wanted to make sure I got those kind of in there. You don't have to answer it right now. I'd just like to have some time to have that conversation.
Thank you, Commissioner. So we'll hold off on those.
Okay.
I would say to your question, I think more time to look at these and the items we didn't get to, and we could provide feedback. You may want to circle back with Commissioner Stevens and see if she wants it in person or a follow-up work session. What is the timeline for do we need to approve this thing?
You do not need to approve it. We just receive guidance through these work sessions from you. And welcome any additional questions and discussion. I think there's a lot of value in talking with all three of you if we can, so that there's good kind of visibility and communication about what we're focused on.
I would recommend perhaps an email from you reminding us that if we want to provide feedback, we have that opportunity via email, the appropriate way. And also, if time allows in one of these work sessions, maybe we can finish up this conversation,
Yeah.
Before the end of the year. If that gives you enough time to say, yeah, this is our work plan.
Yeah, that does.
And maybe to
That's fine.
clarify what I brought up about building codes and, what Matt's going to do in January, just to clarify that, to make sure we're all on the same page there.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rebecca.
We'll look out at calendars and find a time, and yeah, as Rebecca said, really, it's just making sure that we're aligned with commissioners and that you're aligned with what the department's working on. So thank you for the feedback. This is helpful. We'll make sure Commissioner Stevens has an opportunity as well.
So do we want to go on to the remaining really quick, the Community Development Director's report?
We
We
can
have a couple
do
of land use hearings.
a couple minutes of quick updates to bring us to a close here. Go ahead.
Sure, yeah, I just have one quick update for you all. Last work session, I can't remember who asked, but one of you asked about the Mustang Mountain Coaster and when that item would be coming to a hearing with you all as Board of County Commissioners. That has been scheduled for December 9th at 6:30, the 6:30 hearing. So you will see a packet for that next week, hopefully next Monday. But just wanted to give you and anyone who's watching the heads up that that item is coming up in the next couple weeks. That's it for me.
Thank you. Leslie, is there anything you'd like to share?
Mostly to have a happy Thanksgiving, but we have no meeting next week, and then we have the ranch is scheduled to, we'll do an update on the master plan when we come back on the 9th. So, but I hope you have a wonderful, safe, happy Thanksgiving this week.
Thank you, Leslie, and happy Thanksgiving to all of you folks as well. At 2:34 p.m., I believe we are adjourned.
Happy Thanksgiving.